Hello, everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live on this fine Wednesday here in the UK with myself, Tony Harmer, and the amazing Mr. David Cousens. Hello, David.
Hello. Yep, it's me again.
It's very good. Day 3 of what has been a fantastic week so far. So let's hope, and I'm sure it is going to continue lovely. Now, if you're watching, because some of the people, David, they watch on YouTube, and that's no fun. I know.
YouTube, no,
I mean,
come
they
on.
can, but, you know, they miss out on all of the good stuff.
Maybe they like their Skillshare adverts, or
yeah, maybe they do.
maybe that's
all
it.
of that good stuff. Oh my word. What they should do, of course, is come across and join us on be.net/Adobe Live, which is the window I've just accidentally closed. But so we'll find out who's in the chat in a few seconds. But yes. Oh dear.
Yeah, come over to the Hunt. It's really good. I said this yesterday, but the Adobe Live audience is so nice. It's the only safe space on the internet. As far as I'm concerned, it's the only place you can just talk and say things, and it's all safe.
No, it's all lovely in here. And now, actually, I've got the chat. Angus McKenzie was first in the chat today.
Yes.
There you go.
Angus, once again, I'm going to need a noise.
There you go.
It's going to have to happen. There we go.
Oh, you're going to get one because I'm here, because that's apparently my default. Nice. But and Sean is down in front as well. Guten Tag, Sean.
Hey,
Michelle
Sean
is here. Fantastic. And Sandrine is here. Excellent. Doris is here also. And we've got some guy called Tim. Rings of Tim. Yeah, rings a bell. Oliver's in the house. Hi, Oliver. Fantastic. And more, but Angus has popped in with a noise already. So.
There we go. That's the lucky charm for the stream. We're all good then.
Absolutely. No, all good stuff. So anyway, we can chat along with these fine and wonderful people. So day 3 of this very, very, very fine thing. Hi, David, in the chat, by the way, and Steve, Stefan. Day 3. Tell us, what are we in for today? Because we've got a long one, 90 minutes.
Yes, we got 90 minutes. So day 3. So we had a whole lot of fun drawing stuff yesterday. So we're switching gears again today. And we are looking at seeing as I've kind of tailored these to the hosts, to be honest, seeing as you are the king of work smarter, not harder, the design ninja himself. I thought I'd take a similar approach, and I'd look at some of the stuff. Primarily it's for comics, but I could see like applications for it certainly in illustration and perhaps graphic design as well in certain places. Lots of stuff which makes life easier. I want to stress that rather than saying it's not like lazy ways of doing things at all. It's more ways of being efficient, so you can really spend your effort and your energy on the harder things, so you can really make things sell. So yeah, it's gonna be a whole load of that with a mixture of explanation, and then I've got a lovely selection of references, actual examples to show people, which will be good fun.
Oh, I'm liking the sound of this.
Plus,
I'm guessing we're going to get all sorts of components and all of those good things, I bet. That's what I'm thinking. But go on then, take it away, good sir.
Excellent, cool. Right, okay. So let's go. First off, sorry, my AirPods throw me later.
Oh man, I lost one into a jug of paint the other week.
No.
Yeah, it dropped out into a tray of it. I knew it was coming loose, but I was just painting. It popped out into a tray of paint.
I've literally had to get a complete digression ready. That's got to be on my bingo card, I think. I've actually had to get these little ear hook things to go in them, because when I was running, they just flew out. And I almost lost one in the main road, which was fun. So yeah.
No, Apple do sell them individually, so I had to give them the serial number of my AirPod Pros and order a new left one.
Oh, good lord! The fact that they do that's terrible.
Oh no.
They know it's going to happen.
Yeah, Oliver is always concerned that his are going to fall out in the toilet. Why is your head down the toilet?
Hey, look, we're not here to shame Oliver. We've just told everybody it's a safe space.
It's a safe space. But I just,
it's okay, Oliver. Whatever you do in your own time, it's okay. Anyway,
Okay.
Let's do
Spider
some
Gwen.
content stuff. Yeah, we got the Spider Gwen. She's going to turn up a few times in
Yes.
this one. First off, we have on the left, we have the Ultimates, which is drawn by Brian Hitch. And we've got this is the very, very first ever Spider Gwen drawn by Robbie Rodriguez. Now, the kind of key thing which I wanted to note here is about, again, we're talking about efficiency. Now, the Ultimates page is absolutely lovely. Do not get me wrong; it's really, really nice. But this whole cityscape, this would be so arduous to draw because I've got a feeling this was before the days of 3D modeling and stuff. I've got a feeling Hitch was very much a consummate professional, and I don't know how long this would have taken. There's loads of detail. I mean, he has saved himself some time by blacking out some of the buildings, but the majority of it's still there. He's worked out all that perspective and stuff.
The Chrysler building is right at the top of that frame. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, and so if we let's move my palette down there a touch. If we look at this is the very, very first Spider Gwen. Now, there's nothing particularly special about this page, but the reason I want to draw attention to it, the reason why it's here, is if we look at the bottom panel, we can see that there's a kind of simplified, but it's been drawn cityscape. Now, it's clearly nothing against him, and I do not begrudge him this at all. He's clearly not that interested in drawing the buildings, which is fine. I'm kind of with him there because that's quite an arduous thing sometimes. But what I noticed is, I hide those ones. Oh. Yeah.
I mean, also obscuring the background is part of creating focal points, right, within the frame. So. Oh,
absolutely. But what I noticed is this is from I think it's the first issue of the second series that they made of Spider Gwen, same artist. Now, look at the buildings now. They've got they look quite cool now, but there's something different. And this is kind of one of the things which I'm hoping the stream gets people to think about, is it's that thing about not being lazy, but it's about looking for smart shortcuts and ways to do things. Because this looks really nice stylistically. This is much stronger than, say, let's slide that along slightly. Let's move that. Okay, so yeah, you can see here he's like hand drawn, and it doesn't look that special. With this, looks quite nice. Well, now whatever I do, and I imagine a lot of you here watching now do, is if you see something that looks nice, you kind of think, well, what have they done, and how can I do it? Now, I'm fairly certain, looking at the back of it and looking over several other, let's see what was on this one. Yeah, you can see similar things here. If we move across. So let's hide that old one now because we've made our point with that. If you look at the buildings, they've got a kind of, you can see it over multiple issues. There's like a uniformity to them, like almost to the windows. And I think what he's done, I don't know this for certain, but this is my guess, is he's created a number of like stamps in Photoshop and then brought them back in and just transformed them into place. And then repeatedly done that. And that's really smart because that means all he has to do, here we go, I'm going to start drawing over stuff again. I've just got my lovely pink from yesterday, so I'm not using red. To make you happy. So so all we've, that's a bit big, let's go down a touch. So if you imagine he's set up his buildings and whatnot and just done that, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, just a series of component parts, right? That you can just bolt together. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, you imagine it, and then you just transform them into place. Yeah. Which actually, I can even do that now, just to show how that kind of thing would work. Now, bear with me as I go through my legion of brushes. And I've got a specific building set. So
I know so many hacks for perspective grids in Photoshop. I just wish they'd actually introduce one.
Oh, it's absolutely true.
You know,
I really wish they would, because it'd be because there's one of the rival competitors, rival apps actually has like built-in perspective grids.
Well, even Fresco has it. Fresco has a perspective grid. Yeah.
And so there's no. It needs to be in there now. It's getting silly. Come on, Adobe.
Absolutely.
And so we just got it. So let's say like this, right? So I've just got a custom brush, which is that one. Shift and take. There we go. And then, so all I've done there is just with my brush, we've got our lovely pink windows, which is, the brush is just a stamp, which looks like that. It's 3 blocks by 3 blocks. Let's go Control J to make that bigger. Bring it down. And let's go Control E, Control J to merge down and bring it again. So I'm not even, I'm being so efficient, I'm not even drawing each line. And just bringing the stuff in. Bring that in, and then once you've made it into a smart object, which I won't do here because we can just get on with it, just bring it into place, and let's just go to store. And you can even just like freehand stuff into place. What have I done?
Yeah,
I've done.
Yeah, I think you're using one of the. Yeah, I think you were using one of the perspective modes. There.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
There we go. I think I'd hit perspective instead of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I think that's what he's done.
Yeah.
And that's really smart, and that looks so much more stylistic and impressive than when previously he would have spent longer as well. Because I mean, you look, that took me what, 30 seconds to bring out a thing of windows, and then if you save it as a smart object, you can just keep bringing it back and back, and you only need a few different styles, and it's not going to look repetitive.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, I think. That's something that as creatives we should all be thinking about, because there's often so many pressures on us in a day to do things. If you can make something look good and unique, and it saves you so much time, then by all means, go that way, do that. Okay, so now there was something else clever about this one as well. So let's hide that one because I'm not interested in that one now. There's, as well as having all of these buildings with these smart objects, I think, across them. If we look at, it uses a lot of shorthand. So you see these railings.
Yeah.
If we just take a look at those, there's nothing to them. Yeah. And it doesn't
suggestion
matter.
of.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion. Now you could have, and it looks like actually he may even right here, may even have tried to stop. I've got my city brush. Let's use this one. There we go. You may even right around here have actually tried to start drawing the rails and then got fed up there because that's thicker, and then by the time he's just dashing these out, but it still works really, really effectively.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that it's just a foreground lead because you've got that backpack in there as well. You can't get away with quite the same sketch feeling, can you?
No,
as you will do behind, because that's fading across into the background. So
yeah, I mean, it's a lovely, the contrast of detail works really well as well. Nice, because this is particularly clean, this thing, and it stands out not just because I've circled it, but because it's got a because the colors are all warmer and everything's nice and neat and tidy. So that's quite cool. Next up, okay, so yeah, there's gonna be a series of these things.
Yeah, no, it's good. These are great. I love examples like these. These are good ways to communicate.
Good stuff. Yeah, I often find that it's like, rather than me, because I could just show my own stuff, but one that seems a tad gauche. It's just like, here's more of my work. It's like, no, here's proof that it's being used in the wild really well by a number of different people. Right, this we're going to go for a trick just to change up the pace. Let's zoom out a touch because I zoomed in. If you ever want a shortcut to drawing grades, super simple, this one.
That looks like where I'm going with my beard.
I think you should. That looked really Nordic. Have you taken a photo of yourself as a Viking, or have I just imagined this?
No, I have. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a photographer who does that kind of thing, who's waiting on doing another one. So.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay. So yeah, this would be your kind of starting point. This strange elephant-looking thing. That was just a prompt to remind me what I was doing. So okay. So you got the person's head. Draw. Move that because that's distracting. Move this in and down. Okay, so looks pretty strange so far. So just bring in, you can do a simple zigzag shape. Doesn't have to be precise, you don't have to worry about evening up or anything. That's all fine. Now, what you would do is, let's add another layer on top, and let's change color. Oh no, not red. Let's go blue. So all we're doing is extending each of these lines out in this direction. So out. You don't have to draw the arrows. That was just me showing what was going on. And then, if you were to go on top of that, so let's lower the opacity down on those two. Darken out. And then all you would do is, actually, camera like that, you just bring up and around each section like that. So, around there like that, and you just take each one just slightly around the outside of the edge. And then you're starting to find that you've got a set of braids.
There we are. Maddie will soak this up. You know, she was loving watching her face yesterday when you were showing showing the ways to draw folds and creases and explaining compression and stretch folds to her. She was just like, her face was an absolute picture. She was really enjoying it.
Oh, I'm so pleased. I didn't see it, but yeah, she made me laugh when she remarked on the comment in the chat about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that cracked, yeah.
Yeah, she was writing stuff down as well. Everybody, in fact, Angus has just said Maddie was note taking. You could see her furiously writing stuff down.
And so, yeah, there you've got a nice simple set of braids, which it's, I mean, obviously you could tidy them up, and this is like a very quick and dirty version just for the sake of speed and being live. But yeah, that's a nice, really simple way of doing it, because otherwise they can be quite complex and you can be sitting there for ages kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that one goes there. And it can go a bit sideways when you start to do that.
But that's the idea, right? Break it down, break it down, break it down. That makes it easier to do, you know, less to think about. And like you say, saving time that you can spend on the creativity and the other important things, like you say, the difficult stuff.
Yeah. You don't really hung up on drawing some braids, but there can be some kind of drawing whoever's attached to it. It'd be much more interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so this we are going to do. Okay, so we'll start on this one. This is again, I said about there being a couple of Spider-Gwen things in this. This again is from Spider-Gwen. This is omitting distracting details. Yeah. You can tell often the mark of a beginner artist, whether it's an illustrator or a comic artist, is. And I've been guilty of this too, so I'm not judging anybody before I start this. I've been telling you this too. You feel insecure about your talents, and so you feel the need to prove it. You need to prove yourself, and so you draw everything. You draw and you draw and you draw, and what happens is it becomes a visual mess. It becomes too clustered, and there's no visual harmony. You need some busy areas and some calm areas in any illustration or image. And this is true of graphic design, of everything, is that you need your white space, you need your calm areas for people to relax. Otherwise people's brains get tired. And so, for example, not only do we just have a plain black background, there we go, said it right, for this disco. And let's bring in another layer. You can see these ninjas, they just fade into one big mush.
Yeah.
Because we'd have like their bodies would be here and they'd be like fighting. And the artist could have done this. The artist is certainly good enough that they could have done all these things that had the various ninjas in place and stuff. But it would have got extremely fussy. Yeah. And so this is like another thing to be conscious of. There's a lot of different shortcuts going on here. We've got like the silhouette for the black, which we'll touch much more on silhouettes later. I've got a the important thing with the ninjas there is the angle of their gaze, that what they're focusing on. Yeah,
not their entire anatomy.
Yeah, that's precisely it. And you've completely. Oh, I love being on the stream with you. You always get.
I love being on these with you.
Oh. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Like the eyes. So we're focusing on we read these things as like the ninjas' eyes, what we're looking at, and so they're all pointing in. Actually, that one's not. So the majority
was distracted. He's just got a message on his phone.
Oh, this guy's on his phone. Like, come on.
And the one next to him is saying, "I told you not to bring that."
He said, we're supposed to turn that on silent when we're on work. But yeah, do you know what? I didn't do that on Monday's stream. I was panicked. I suddenly, I got like 2 minutes into the streams. Like, I did not turn notifications off.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I've been having trouble with focus on my phone. It just keeps not being in focus, not going into focus mode. I don't know why.
Oh, well,
anyway.
Well, hopefully mine does. And if I get a phone call that knocks out my camera midstream, we'll know why.
Yeah.
No, fingers crossed.
Could I just ask you to do a favor? Could you just Command 0 that window so it's big in case people are watching it on a phone?
Good point.
As well. Sorry. That's a good shout. Just in case.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sandrine has a question, by the way. I think it's going back to where we were with the Platts a moment ago. She's saying, does it help with drawing knowing how things are made physically? I mean, when you take braids, does it help you to try making one to understand how the material interacts? I don't know where you are on it. I kind of think that sometimes knowing too much about the subject you're drawing can actually be a hindrance because you start getting obsessed with details. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I was going to say a flat out yes initially, but you do have a point, actually, that sometimes the less you know, you're not restricted by... but yeah, like you said, there's the kind of fact you think, oh, well, technically, I know this doesn't do this. This isn't capable of this.
Yeah.
So sometimes that could limit you, whereas like if you're really big onto your anatomy towards a point, you're never going to have a character punching with this kind of huge fist. Which, I mean, that's not even a proper fist. but
we know what it is. So that's
exactly. It's that thing that you never get that kind of cartoon exaggeration. However, that being said, I would say yes, there is a definite benefit a lot of the time for knowing how something exists, because you don't run into those problems where you can see it sometimes with, I'm going to use a geeky example for a change, which I don't normally ever do. In the early Star Wars comics, you could see that the artists were given a whole bunch of photos from the films before they came out. We're talking, so before anyone's seen Darth Vader and stuff. So they were given a whole load of press photos to work from. So sometimes the likenesses are pretty good and pretty solid. And other times you can see they've had to guess. Because like the details in shadow or like something's obscured and they don't have a clue. And so you're getting something that's wildly off model. And so in cases like those, there's a certain, it's like if, I don't have one in hand, but I'm still on Star Wars in my head. So say the Millennium Falcon, say you had a photo of that and then I'd never seen the back of it. Okay, then I wouldn't have a clue how it would be shaped realistically. You'd be is it that curved? Is there something weird on the side?
Well, how do I know what to omit?
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing, because if you look at, going back to the braids, because like if I'm saying like this is a shorthand for braids, you're like, okay, cool, that's a braid. But if I just went like that, so it's nice and simple, and somebody hadn't ever seen a braid, then they could interpret that wildly wrong. Because I have not suggested any depth on there, so they may think it's literally like a two-dimensional thing, whereas like you're missing out all the kind of the overlap.
I mean, some of it is, I mean, drawing is one thing, of course, rendering being a process beyond drawing, and I do think that it does help. So when you're drawing a braid like that, when you're rendering that braid, you're going to need to know where to place shadows and highlights to give it volume. So I think that does help if you know the construction at that point. But I think when you're drawing, and I'm sorry, Sandrine, if I'm making a nitty gritty kind of detail here, but there is a distinction. I think when you're drawing, having an idea, having seen a thing is probably helpful, but it's at the rendering stage where I think it's more important to know what it does. If it's possible to know.
I will say I always advise that people aren't a slave to their reference, because that is the creativity killer. It's like if you draw something fine, that you've got some reference to help you understand it, that's good. But then do your own thing with it, push it a bit, break it, like bend things, make it your own. Because otherwise, I mean, you can see when people do things like, as a time saver, say they just trace a car or something, the perspective may not be dead on.
Yeah.
Or everything, like say you've got like really, really expressive lines and people go like this, and then suddenly you've got this car which is very meticulously
yeah, it's super elaborate detail,
yes.
and you just think, okay, that was an overdraw then.
Yeah. And so it's like if you're going to do it, you need to hide it well. So like save yourself time, but don't hurt your own image because of it.
Yeah.
So reference good, but don't marry it. Just flirt with it.
Sandrine was following up in that and saying, on a personal level, with things I'm not familiar with, I need to know all the angles, even the ones I won't use. But then again, it takes me 2 months to do an illustration. It's not a contest or a race. Take as long as you need to do it. Is the first thing I'd say to that.
Yeah, it's always with yourself, isn't it? It's like the race is not against anybody else. It's just, you just need to keep going and improving. I think that's the thing. As long as you're enjoying it. I think you enjoy it, you'll learn. Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me.
I was just thinking. Sorry. I'm not tangenting you. I promise.
No. It's fine.
No,
I had to stifle.
I've just realised why that other ninja isn't looking in the same direction. It's because I think he's just perceived a threat in the woman over her right shoulder.
Oh, you
see what I mean? She's actively moving towards that. I think there's a perception of threat.
Yeah.
So. It's all cleverly done, though.
It's really, really nice. It's really well done.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Okay, so now I've got a test for everybody.
Okay.
Whoa, hang on. Let's get rid of that first. That's not the test.
Okay.
The test is.
Ooh.
What's wrong? This is Frank Frazetta.
Yeah. Is that Conan?
Very, very, very. Do you know what? I can't remember. I've got this my Frazetta archive, and I can't think which what this comes from. But there's something very specific about this.
Yeah.
Which I'm just wondering if anyone in the chat will pick up on. Okay, got 5 seconds. Okay.
Well, Sandrine's got a Frank Frazetta tattoo. Fantastic.
Oh, right. Wow.
Not the answer David was looking for, but handy to know.
Yeah, no. No, that sounds good. I was going to say, let's see it, but that sounds really bad. No. Okay, so this section is about omitting distracting details.
Yep.
And if anybody's noticed, there is no drawstring for the bow.
Yep.
Like at all, because he's decided it wasn't necessary. If you notice, even because it would obscure the face, there's no arrow in the second part.
There's the hint of an arrow, I think, towards the point. Yeah.
You can see here the arrow literally starts to fade out, but here, because a contrast I appreciate may not be that good. It's mega blurry, but you can see it literally goes dark, and then fades off, and then it's gone by the time we get to the face. There is actually a slight indication by the looks of it of a very, very, very faint, but it's basically imperceivable. But this is a thing which is very, very useful. I've done it again. I had Command 0. Okay. This is a thing which you should bear in mind. This is one of those things which comes into illustration and graphics and everything. If something's going to hurt what you're doing, because the composition's fantastic, the monster looks great, and you don't fancy a massive redraw to make something work, just omit it. Like everybody's brain is so good at doing this.
Yeah, we fill in the gaps all the time.
Yeah, and to prove this, we'll bring up another Frazetta one. Let's make it a touch bigger. Okay, same deal. Anyone spot it? Anyone in the chat? No. Okay.
I'm just waiting for the.
I know. I know. Sorry, it's allowed. Yeah.
Yeah. That remember they got a slight delay as well. They've got like 15 seconds behind us. So
this me like, I didn't want dead air, but yeah.
No, we're good. By the way, for just while they're having a look and examining that, Steve Cossaboom in the chat. Kiora Steve was saying for all of 2022, Wade Acuff, is it Acuff or Acuff, has done a monthly thematic study. 1 month was fabric and folds. All right, okay, picking up on where we were yesterday. Frank Frazetta, did you know Frank Frazetta made some of the old Ghost Rider covers? There you go. I've got a load of magazines with Frank Frazetta artwork in, like really old.
He's the person that Mike Mignola learned shadows from.
Mm.
Because Mignola's shadows are really strong, and it's literally he would squint at the Frazetta ones, and if you do that, you can actually see like, oh yeah, you can have a shadow there on the knee and stuff. Because Frazetta's shadows are really powerful, as you can see. Right, anybody had any guesses?
Right, let's have a look. There's no leads or reins on the bears.
Yay, well done.
There you go. That's Jane. Well done, Jane. A up, by the way.
Good work, Jane. So
there
yeah, and you know what? I will wholeheartedly admit, I will honestly admit, I did not spot this. This was pointed out to me by somebody, and I've seen this so many times. And this is on the cover of multiple books. This isn't like I saw this once and just it was there and gone. I've seen this image so many times in my life, and so different things. And it's only when somebody said there's no reins, it's like, oh my god, yeah. And it's like, yeah, he decided it wouldn't add anything, so it's gone.
Do you know that I don't know? This may be a tangent, so I'll apologise in advance.
I do not mind tangents.
So we synthesize a lot of what we think we see is synthesis all the time, right? There's that that's why our eyes move so frequently. It's like because they're updating on different parts of the surrounding, so they can synthesize this whole image. We actually only see through a very, the bit we really see is through a tiny part. I think it's about 5% of the cone of vision. Yeah, there's an area in there. I think it's called the foveal cone. I think.
Okay.
I'm not an optician or an optometrist, so I'm not entirely sure. But I think it's called the foveal, and that's the bit that actually sees. It's that tiny area. Everything else around that is being synthesized, and that's how artists can exploit that. You don't have to go into all those details because provided you've suggested the right bits, which I know is what you're driving at, but so it will make up the rest, and that's why you don't see the reins or whatever, because they've been implied and you've just gone along with it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that your brain is surprisingly good at making stuff up.
Yeah,
and because it has so much. If you actually, even if you just look around the room that you're in now, there are so many bits of information and input to take in that you would go insane if you tried to accurately take in everything that's around. Even if nothing's happening in your room, there's so much there, and it's the same reason why it's your reticular activation system. It's the same reason why if you've ever had the experience of you're looking for something. And like, I can't see it. And somebody says it's in the cupboard. You're like, no, it's not. I've looked. And then you keep looking around for it. And then you're like, I can't see it. And they like open the cupboard right there. And you go, oh, geez. And it'll be because you were doing something like you either didn't want to see it because you already missed it. And so your brain's like, we don't need to see it.
Yeah.
Or the alternative thing is quite often, say I'm looking for a mug.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm looking for a white mug and it's actually blue.
Yeah.
And so my brain's just going like white, and just scanning very quickly for white because it's so much more simple than checking every individual item.
Yeah.
So if people do that to you, they're not trying to wind you up. They genuinely can't find it.
It's a real thing.
It's their brains against them.
Yeah. We just assume to. I've got a bit of a wow moment just come up in the chat, David.
Go. Yeah.
It's from Sandrine. Sandrine had a long-running job restoring old comics, and her work was shortlisted for an Eisner Award.
Whoa.
That's when I saw it. I was like, and she said she did restore some of those covers. Yeah, the Ghost Rider from Magazine Enterprise, not the one from Marvel. Yeah. So there you go. And Angus is commenting on suggesting details. Rembrandt is a master of this too, with highlights and lighting. Absolutely.
Yeah, he did some very, very good stuff. Cool. Right. Next.
Jane says that's her husband all the time. He can't see for looking.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's genuinely a thing. It's not anybody's fault. It's their brain is just filtering for them. Yeah. So yeah, go easy on your husband, Jane, I guess.
There you go.
Maybe. I don't know. Right. Okay. So next up, again, change of pace. How to draw a football. Damn, I didn't cover it over. I actually didn't think. Look, I was going to do this as a joke and just say step one, get a photo.
Have you ever seen that meme, how to draw an owl?
Yes. Yeah. Do you know, I'm guilty of doing that. I did a tutorial once. It was a painting tutorial, and it was really deep and and it's just like I just drawn the owl. But yeah, I do like that one.
I actually saw one yesterday, which had a thing on rendering a sci-fi vehicle, and it basically had, you know, blocking the values. And then it just said, add some details. And this thing was just like covered in details. Oh, yeah, of course.
It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Lordy.
One side tip for that, actually, if you are going to draw stuff like sci-fi things with detail.
Yeah.
If you can, if the time permits, look up some things that people have already done, like bits of detail, and just draw those and get them in your head, in your visual memory.
Yeah.
And then suddenly that kind of stuff does become a bit more second nature.
Yeah.
But like I spent a good 2 months just drawing robot stuff from reference, like mechanical arms and things.
Yeah.
Just so I could finally make my transformers look a bit more plausible, because I was getting a bit tired of them just being quite blocky. But yeah.
It's good stuff.
With this, I want to point out, actually, because I know I'm being glib and funny just for the sake of saying just trace football. Specifically after I did say to not trace things. In the case of things like football, you've got a sphere. Yeah. All right. You don't need to waste the time doing that. If it's moving, then absolutely fine. Like have it been kicked and literally do a squash and stretch. Like change the shape of it so that the ball's been like really, really kicked, and you can make it look like it's really powering through the sky. So you just have your suggestions of it, like be scratchy and fun, and so you kind of get the idea it's moving through. But if it's stationary or just, you know, like that, just trace it. So nobody's going to stop to look at how well you've rendered a football against the player or the stadium or any of those other things.
You've got to suggest the motion somehow. So, and squash and stretch, the best way.
Yeah, squash and stretch. I'm going to assume everybody here is familiar with that. But yeah, the concept is if you just realised, kind of sidetrack, but if you just drew a ball being kicked, unless they drew speed lines, it looks absolutely stationary.
Yeah.
And what you will find in hand-drawn animation, and lots of times in 3D animation, they've got a lot more. They're bringing a lot more of these things across.
Yeah, deformers.
They would take lots of, like, in between the keyframes. You will see something more like that.
Yeah,
it'll be a blob, and it has soft edges. Or in the cases of, say, Spider-Verse or Arcane on Netflix, you will have people hand drawing in between frames.
Yeah,
and so you will have things like that, which, because it just, otherwise, if you see there's like an animation test, which if you just see a ball just doing this, you're like, okay, that's
it becomes a snooker ball. It's just
and then but whereas if you have like there and then this kind of thing, hopefully this kind of makes sense of what's going on. So the ball, then it kind of goes down and goes ball, and that animated, drawn much less crudely and fastly, would make it feel for a really convincing movement. It'd be much more satisfying to look at.
Yes.
So just a little side note there to get some.
Yeah, no, side notes are always good. I like sidebars.
I think I live by them. Okay, so this next one. This is more. I've not got tons of examples for this, and I just found a random one. This is just for. This is a general rule that I heard somebody say a while ago.
Yeah.
Is that if you focus on the hands and face first, you can get away with not doing a lot.
Yeah.
Loads of stuff, because humans, we look at each other's faces for a lot of communication, and certainly, as I keep proving on these streams, hands are quite important to how we communicate as well. And like mine gesturing all over the place. And so my kids picked me up on that yesterday. It's one of those things. So if you can make convincing hands and faces, 90% of your job is done. And if you look here, we've got like the faces are really good. They're really, really detailed in this, but only the ones that need to be. If I zoom in, so I'm going to press Control-0 afterwards, but we can see here, there's just smudges. These are like texture brushes, or paint if it's.
But if they were drawn to the same level, you'd have no sense of of the depth inside of there, and also it'd be incredibly confusing to look at.
It'd be chaotic. It would.
Yeah.
It would be. There's a good thing to think of whenever you're making an illustration or not, or a comic one as well. Is you need to be mindful of the cognitive load.
Yeah.
Like the more you put onto people, if you think about it, much like if you saved a JPEG, if you drew like a couple of lines on a JPEG and saved it, it would be a few K. If you drew like a detailed manuscript, it would be hundreds.
Yeah.
Or thousands even.
Yep.
It's the same with our brains. It's like we need a rest, and we don't. It's why kids' cartoons are really simple. It's like they're really simplistically drawn and don't have much in the way of detail. It's because they can't take as much in before their attention span goes, and you would lose people's attention span. And the good news is this makes it much quicker to draw.
Yep.
It's one of those things. It's a complete win all over.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if you saw it, there was a stream with Klaus Shavinsky, who's been on a few times, storyboard artist, and he has a hands first approach. Draw the face, draw the hands, and it makes it, once you've got those 3 reference points, it makes the other things fall into place. Yeah. If you've got the angle of the hand, you know where the rest of the arm is coming from. If you know where the head is, you know where it's leading to there. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, because there are multiple characters. The video game character Raymond's the first one that jumped to mind, but he doesn't have arms. It's like you've got like he's like the head, like a bean body, and then hands. He's got 2 like floating hands. Yeah. And your brain never stops to think like, oh well, hang on, I can't read this because of his elbows missing. You automatically, your brain's like, oh yeah, the hand should be there. That's fine.
Yep.
So yeah, it's amazing what you can get away with not doing, and also it's a little extra touch just as a. Where are we? Let's just bring this one back. No, this one. Make a new one. There's an extra touch like here. This is drawing. This is contrast drawing attention, which is just a good thing to do. That's not a time saver. That's just something which is quite nice. So you can see this is where we want to be. Let's hide those. So yeah, so that's more just a general thing. Next up, we have recycling elements. Now this is, I think this is the last Spider-Gwen one I've got. There's a few ways that this can work. I'll bring something of my own in a second to show. Yeah. But this background here is basically the same background, but they've pulled it in forward so we can have a different angle, and it makes it feel like if like the average reader's not going to pay as much attention as we are right now. Yeah. And to be honest, it's one of the depressing things about art is you think of like how long you can work and stress over it. Yeah. And then people go like, okay, cool, next, and they're going through. You're like half a second on somebody's feed. So this kind of thing's quite clever. So we've got a good use of silhouette there to just suggest that's an Ellie. We don't need to see it, but yeah, this background here is identical. It's just moved in and transformed a bit, and then to be extra clever, they've blacked out the top part. In this one. Yeah. So it looks different. It just kind of pulls the thing, and then it's identical. Now this kind of thing is good because you can use. I'm going to try to find the relevant thing now. Okay. Hope my iMac gets to it fast. Basically, what I'm going to explain as I try to find this is I created for. This was my old Falling comic way back when in the day. There was a scene where. Okay, I'm just going to go on talking while this is trying.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
For this scene here.
Oh yeah.
This I'm still waiting for the main PSTs to load up.
Yeah, okay.
This left hand rock face was all painted. So let's make that much bigger so everybody can see it. Preview window. So this was all painted, but just the once, and then I flipped it and brought it over, and so then I just repainted a couple of bits on top of the flipped version. Yeah. So we had a canyon there, and then what I did, if I can pull out the full one, then I manipulated that into the background for this, and then put a different one for that, and moved it, and just slightly turned, and so it looked like I was putting a lot more effort into the background, like everything looked quite animated, and like I had a high production team behind me.
Mhm.
But in fact, it didn't. It was just me just reusing assets, and you just kind of pull them in and move them slightly. And it doesn't just have to be something like rocks. I mean, yeah, buildings are good. I mean, say you had a landmark, like a famous building or something, and it would be quite tight, like say Buckingham Palace.
Yeah,
it'd be time consuming to draw. So I would recommend you draw the whole thing, but then in future panels you move it across somewhere, and so you've just got an angle so you can have like somebody's face is in front and you've just kind of tilted it, and you'll be surprised you can actually get away with transforming and skewing stuff a bit more than you would think, and it won't break. There's obviously, you have to be careful and judge it by eye, because you can't just draw the same building and transform it to oblivion. And
tonally you have to change it as well, don't you, to make it, so you get a sense of it's not just all against one light.
And so it's just that extra bit of it's a time saver. You still have to put some effort into it. So I'm not a big fan of when somebody, just like the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, just reuses the same background again and again, and you're like, oh come on,
it's just the background.
It's like, at least try to make something look different, isn't it? It's like, if I can take the time to read it, like, give me something. But so that's another thing to think of. And also just generally reusing your assets.
Being quite transformed by it at the time about reusing components and about having a no, honestly, David, it was absolutely incredible. I thought that was the most amazing thing. Anyway, shall we move on to the next one?
I'm just kidding. Talk about that more. I mean, that's so life-changing.
I'm just kidding. Sorry, everybody. We've not moved any further forward. We had a small technical hitch just there. We're back with you now. So David was just about to begin on this section in components. So go on, David.
We were Tony and I were talking about that if you've got lots of elements that you're going to use, you can save them and bring them back, and then you can reuse them. It certainly worked. Like when I was doing more painterly stuff, I don't do this as much now. But we can see in this one. Let it back up. You can see that's the mountain face that I drew. So that's there, and then it's flipped and transformed. You can see the tree. So I only drew the one tree, but then that's that tree there. And I've warped them, I've liquefied them, and then I've in a couple of cases, like, because you can see this tree is all completely rendered, I made it a bit sparse. Like the tree was a touch more ill and stuff. And here we've got the kind of brambles and things are just in that. So these are all drawn there.
But I remember the book specifically. I remember the book and the planks that are next to it. The first things you created in your
That's right. Because we did a whole asset thing. I can't find that. I can't see that image, but that's fine. It's because that was the first test to see how robust it would be. Like when I saw this idea, I was like, oh, can I make that? And so I did make this little thing with planks and books and things. So it does work. So that's quite cool. I
mean, because you had a job of work on because of with falling specifically, because you've gone for that very manga-like style, so you actually needed those backgrounds. It was as if you were producing like an animated epic in the still form. So you actually needed that.
That's partly what stopped it eventually, was if I went a bit too ambitious. I think I watched far too much. I watched far too much Legend of Korra.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I want to make everything look like that. And it's like, they have thousands of people. and I'm one guy in a room.
So
that's why I changed I changed over and into more kind of comic style stuff. Because I was painting lines and everything there. I was doing the opposite of what I'm doing now, which is like actually getting stuff made and looking for shortcuts. I was making everything so hard for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, coloring the lines, it was like, it looked nice and everything, but yikes. It was so much extra work for not really the stuff. Right, now this one, I'm actually, this one's cast shadows, but I couldn't find examples for this at a time. And so what I'm going to do now is just illustrate kind of by hand what vaguely I mean with this. Is it say, hello? Why am I not seeing it? Oh,
it's making marks, but I think
there we go. Yeah,
okay. There you go.
Wrong. It was in a hidden folder. Okay, so let's say we've got a person stood there. That's very nice and simple, just very quickly.
Yeah, Angus is saying, no wonder the RSI.
Yeah. Oh, I know, yeah. That's also partly, I used to do these tiny, I used to draw an A4, it used to be. And because I was taught by my mum and my grandmother, who were both left-handed, to write and draw when I'm right-handed, I'm better than I used to be because I'm drawing at the Cintiq now.
Still curling over.
But I was still like right really backwards and around. So yeah, I was really not doing myself any favors at all. But yeah, stretch every day. RSI is bad.
Yeah, you have my sympathy, and I can empathise because it's something that I suffer with. And,
have you ever had your back cracked?
No, mine's beyond the point of doing that. But what I do get is I have to sleep when it's particularly bad. I have to sleep with my arm in a brace that holds my arm in. Yeah, so it holds my hand like that. Yeah. The brace holds my hand like that and keeps it because otherwise the hands, it just keeps the shortest route for the tendons, and then I can stretch it out in the morning.
Oh man, that sucks. Yeah, I got lucky in that I put up with it for a few years, and then when I did get to that point where I couldn't hold a pen, I then panicked, and then got it looked at, and it was quite funny when I kind of said to the doctor I thought I knew what it was, and they took some blood samples and so all these things they didn't need to do just to be sure. But then eventually they did send me to a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And as I was sat there talking to the woman, she said, yeah, okay, I can see by the way you're sitting that you've got some muscle atrophy there and whatnot. And so she said, okay, like got me on the table. Suddenly went like clunk, clunk, clunk. It was the most weird feeling. I was like, oh my God, like things are just happening in my back that aren't supposed to happen. But it was great. It fixed things within about 2 weeks. But on the drive home, I couldn't straighten up. I was like in America. I was like driving my car like this, like completely fell. I could not slouch. Yeah, it was absurd. I was like an action figure that had no articulation. It was really weird.
Brilliant.
But okay, so we get carried away with just drawing.
Yeah.
So say we've got there's a whole lot of detail and whatnot here on this background. And so we say posters or whatnot. But if you just make life easier on yourself.
David Ken Cousens.
Kendall.
Sandrine's on a roll today.
Please don't call me Ken. No offense to anybody who actually is called Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. But just not that Ken.
Yes, yeah, not that Ken.
Yeah.
Although, if I remember right, he was quite funny in Toy Story. I'm not sure.
Have you watched the Netflix adaptation of Sandman?
I've seen the first couple.
It's quite good. There's a Ken and Barbie in there later on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. No, I wanted to watch it, but Sarah was away. She had she caught COVID, and so we had to stay away so I could be all right for a few days. Yeah. I had too much work on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just catching up on stuff to watch now.
Yeah, Oliver's saying he needs to watch that. It's good.
Yeah, no, it's from what I saw, I liked it.
Yeah. Sean Kosel has got several chiropractors in his family.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, well, that's handy.
That is handy.
So you are never going to have RSI, Sean, or any kind of neck problems.
No,
that's awesome.
It's fluid as.
Yeah. So yeah, so if you imagine this, basically, if you have a cast shadow, it can be quite strong.
Yep.
Do you know what? I should have found the Batman image, really, shouldn't I? Because also you can use it as a design element. So you'd have,
Yeah.
you could have like say that they would do that thing. They do this with like Daredevil a lot as well. Actually, it's a bit,
Yeah.
like kind of like the shadow of the character. Or if it's Spider-Man, you'd have where's my tilde key? You just have Oh yeah, fun tip. I heard people going crazy about this the other day. So in case you didn't know, you don't have to switch the eraser. Just press the tilde key and switches to clear on your brush, which is lovely fun. So yeah, that'd be like the Spider-Man one. Maybe like that. So it works as a design element. Looks quite cool, and you can always cut into it.
It's a great conveyor of mood when you do shadow like that.
Yeah, it is really nice and moody.
Mm.
So yeah, occasionally just bear in mind stuff like opportunities to save yourself a whole lot of drawing of the wall and stuff, which like because these things can add up. Sometimes if you're in a rush, you just don't need. I mean, nobody struggles to draw a wall, but at the same time, maybe you're struggling with your deadlines and you don't want to waste time drawing a wall. That kind of thing. Now, where are... Oh, of course, I went through. There we go. Atmospheric interference.
Ooh.
Yeah. This one, I was wrong. There is another spider going.
Oh, vulture.
Yeah, I love this page. And what's really clever about this is I don't even think in the story there was any reason for this gas. I don't think this is not some poison gas that he's coming down with. I think it's just a visual flair that Rodriguez added when he drew it. But this is so smart because it looks really cool. This looks really strong, having this bright green, noxious green kind of smoke around. But if you look here, top panel, no need for background whatsoever.
Yeah.
You've got a slight indication of the board. We've got a complete green background there, partially obscured, and then just some suggested cityscapes. And again, complete lot of smoke. So not having to draw any tall buildings, no time wasted drawing perspective or anything, just drawing the stuff that he finds fun. And it's that kind of thing is very, very smart because it's like you just don't quite see it. Same again, smoke in this one. This is from Batgirls. This is Jorge Corona. Yeah, this is really nice. I only discovered this.
Top frame is beautiful.
It's really lovely. That's actually that's why I grabbed it. It's
and the frame crack is fantastic. It's really
it's a beautiful thing.
Oh,
and do you know what? When I saw this, people were complaining about the art. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Yuck! Why?
It's like this is glorious. Some people don't like cartoony stuff. I think they never quite got out of the 1990s. I'm not sure. That is a beautiful frame. I love that frame. It's glorious, isn't it? It's really it's like the colors are sumptuous, the movement, the energy in it,
everything about it.
Brush stroke is it's like it's absolutely amazing.
All of the above.
Yeah. And it's like you said, and I love the fact as well. I mean, this is smart on a number of levels because one, he saved himself having to draw anything above the line anyway.
Yeah.
But two, it's clearly an intentional thing because it makes I don't know which Batgirl this is, but when like her cape's going over the Cassandra Cain Batgirl is there with her cape. That looks really impactful. It's really, really dynamic. And then also the smoke looks really expressive. But again, like look how much of the background he doesn't have to do all of this.
I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Brett Ewins.
Yeah.
Spawn, 1990s. Who really mastered those long drawn out geometries of fabric, you know, like all of the rules you mentioned yesterday out the window. I want a chain that's like 4.5 miles long. I want a cape that is disappearing off into the background. And I think that changed that. I just remember that being a break point in, you know, it's the furthest I'm sure it was Brett Ewins.
McFarlane kind of invented Spawn, and he did some crazy.
McFarlane, Todd McFarlane, wasn't it? Brett, yeah.
Because he would do. Let me find whichever layer I'm on there. This one? No, atmosphere. There we go. This one.
Thank you for assisting my addled memory.
That's quite okay. Because McFarlane would do. I saw him demo this once. He came up with shapes like this. He'd just go like that.
It's
and then
all about the motion.
genuinely, that's how he would start.
Yeah.
Because he didn't care. He was like, okay, this is going to look badass. And then he would just go, and the capes would just go all over each other. Like, if you look at old Spawn, he did it first in a Batman one, and these capes just go like, it's like madness. It's like, it's so much that I got screen lag.
Yeah. Actually, I think the first thing that I saw was Batman and Spawn. There was a team up.
Oh, okay,
yeah, because I was so impressed by it. I reproduced one of the frames as a mural in the kid's bedroom.
Oh, nice. That's so cool.
It was so epic.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, he really kind of set the world alight with his stuff.
Mm.
And it was, because I mean, it was so cool. And again, he was one of those ones, like, if you look at some of his stuff, actually, it's another important thing I want to mention just generally for everybody, is you don't have to stress about getting everything perfect in a picture.
No.
It's like, if you get something right, or get the main thing worked on,
yep,
the rest can be slightly wrong, and people aren't going to care. It's like, say like a hand's drawn somewhere wrong in the background. If you're looking at the main character doing something, it's all dynamic, and just the hand over there, like, nobody's going to spot it.
No.
And McFarlane's stuff, like, sometimes it's like the anatomy was wonky. You'd have like a nose was kind of almost underneath the second eye and things. Like, it was really like some odd stuff when you start to break down the individual things. Mm-hmm. But on the same page, you'd have some kind of like kick-ass thing of Spider-Man like jumping through with webs everywhere, and somebody's being punched, and it was just so much cool stuff.
Yeah,
that you kind of don't care.
Yeah,
it's like, so. Go.
I was just gonna say, I just thought of somebody else that actually did I mean, because it wasn't capes and everything, but sort of hyper extended anatomy, was in 2000 AD in the Slain comics.
Oh, right.
Did you ever come across those?
No, I don't. I'm already wishing I had.
Oh, but they were very, very, very different of their time, you know, in that they really did push the boundaries of anatomy. I'm going to look that up in a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
No, it is good fun. It's like, I think that's one of the things, like, knowing the rules and then you can break them.
Yeah.
Because again, like if we talk about the folds yesterday, you can see here that they understand how the folds work, but then they're ignoring it after a point.
Yeah.
They got up to that, and then suddenly it's just like, yeah, but this is cool like this.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it did
like,
become about graphic art. That it was, you know, it really was graphic art.
Yeah. And it's really cool, and it gives you a lot of leeway. I think this is one of those things which I think that, like, artists really bring to stuff. Yeah. I know there's been lots of worrying about AI and stuff recently. Is that you've got that, like, the choices you can make that are available to you at any time. It's like, I mean, with this Batgirl's cape here, it's like, this turns into almost nonsense. It's very, very abstract, but it looks absolutely superb. But anyway, back to atmospherics.
Sorry, yeah. By the way, it was originally Massimo Ballardinelli and Mike Madden who did Slain. Yeah.
I'm going to Google this later.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down a rabbit hole.
I've got some in here somewhere.
That does not surprise me with your book collection. I'm just upset I don't. Cool. And well, we can also go actually for like very literal weather.
Ooh.
This is from this is a relatively new series called Decorum. This is Mike Huddleston, who it's really worth a look actually. If any of you watching are kind of interested, the story's okay. It's like a sci-fi thing. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, so if you like his stuff, you already know what you're in for. But for me, it was the art. It's like he goes all over the place. I think I may have another one of his images in here later. And stylistically, it's like every time he gets bored, he just changes gear. So you can have completely fully painted stuff. There's some very retro 60s Jack Kirby style, like Ben-Day dots. Suddenly he's dropping out all the color entirely. But in the same page, you can have something which looks like Ashley Wood drew it with like an ink and halftone. And then the next panel is like really like rendered, painted, almost concept art kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just going to go from page to page. So it's just really interesting. Anyway, sidetrack. The point is made.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, it's You can tell I get enthusiastic about these things. Just talk about this all the time. Yeah, atmosphere. We don't have to draw everything. If you think when you're in the street, like here we got rain. If I zoom into this one, let's bring that over here. You can see barely suggestions. Like this is a paintbrush down.
Yeah.
There's a paintbrush there, and it just suggests roofs. Like there's the barest suggestion of a mountain, and this is just like hatch marks on this building.
Yeah,
it's just scratches. But much like in the same way when we look down a rainy street, everything becomes obscured by rain. You can completely do that with atmospheric stuff. It works with like dust clouds, with dust being kicked up in people's faces and stuff. And so it saves you so much time, again, drawing and working out perspective and sorting all these things out. And it looks really cool too.
Well, aerial perspective is the thing, right? And also remembering that the atmosphere in which we're in is water. There's water in the air, and from a distance in certain conditions, that water becomes thicker. It does anyway, but like hazy days, that's where, and on rainy days like that, it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you can always see. I mean, you can see pollution. You can see like when the nitrogen's thick in the air. It's all of these things. They're kind of dense. They're slightly translucent, but they collect further away. So yeah, you can see like just suggestions and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's also worth remembering, because the temptation again when you're new and starting off is to draw every last thing. Go like, look,
crack on the mountain.
And it's like I know how to draw the perspective and do that, and it's like, and here's like 10,000 people, and there's somebody over here doing something, and
this comic will be ready when exactly?
2035. I'm working on it. I'm definitely going to finish it. I won't get bored with it at all.
Yeah.
I it's suddenly just sort of an old image I made when I was like 19 or 20, and I don't have it there. That's a shame. But I was very much I fell into that trap of I would throw everything in there. Every single page I would draw or illustration had like references. There were so many references. There was Who Watches the Watchmen on the graffiti. There was like little in jokes from my friends. There was like, it was over the top. It was excessive. Again, we've used this one before, but in this case, this is just for as far as atmosphere. I'm calling that the sound, or the onomatopoeia. Technically, there's no sound in comics, but the onomatopoeia. You have all of these sound effects drawn in, and it's just crazy. You've got motion and all the screaming and stuff, and it really sells the action and the chaos. But there's barely anything drawn here. Like as far as the background goes, like I mean, we know it's the Star Wars corridor, so we know kind of what this looks like. But you look, as far as that corridor, that's just a series of lines like that. That could be a train track. That could be anything. Just looking at that there, and then it's like the same as like, I mean, the door here. Okay, like the door's drawn, but again, we've just got random like crossing guard lines.
Yeah.
And so it can be, but that does not look lazy at all. So that's another particular way.
I think when we were talking the other week about this and sound effects specifically, I remember telling you that they were a big part of the comic, which I'm still trying to find. By the way, one of my comics from way back, that I used to use sound effects as actual parts of the story. So as I think I told you about, there was one where there was a noise. So there was this persistent sound effect moving across the spread, and someone was saying, where's that noise coming from? And one of the other characters said, I don't know, let's follow this sound effect and find out. And then it went across to the next page.
Oh my God, I love it.
It's just nuts. I can't remember if we spoke about that or not, but anyway, I will find it eventually.
Yeah, I was going to say, please find that, because that's amazing. No, I love anything like that. If it's like the fourth wall breaking of the comic stuff.
Exactly. I love that stuff.
That's really good. And I love a good sound effect anyway.
Yeah.
That's superb.
I've got an all-time favorite, actually. I'll try and find it along with everything else I told you I'd find. It's a Captain America from the 1980s, and it is my favorite sound effect ever. When I find
I know the one.
You do, you?
Starts with a W.
Yes. Epic.
Yes, I've had a good chuckle about that one before.
Yeah.
And sorry if you don't know in the chat, I'm very sorry. We can't tell you what it is.
No, we can't. No,
We can't.
but it's so funny.
If you feel brave enough and adult enough, then then just Google Captain America sound effect. I'm sure that will come up.
Exactly. I can even remember the battle. It's a battle against Hydra.
Yeah.
And so good. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, David.
No. It's absolutely fine. Again, there was this is from Asterios Polyp, which I've talked about before. This is about as far as I think as you can push it, which was what the artist David Mazzucchelli was doing. He was very much kind of keen to see how you could stretch and change comics and things, and how far you could push it before it would stop reading. But as you can see here, it's like he's not had to draw anything. We've got a snowstorm, and it's only about 3 steps removed from that joke of having a blank page and saying it's a polar bear in a snowstorm. It's like there's just enough of a suggestion so we can see the car. You've got the faint outline silhouette of a figure, rather, and then it just fades away. You can just see him walking into the snow, and then you just get nothing. These kind of blue bits, but so that would be a really easy page to draw. But that it does not mean it's not effective.
You've still got to think about it.
Yeah,
it's that Have you ever seen Hans P. Backer's book Vision?
Yes,
you ever seen?
Yeah,
that's a great book for people to take in for this sort of stuff, I think.
He's got it's either 2 or 3. I think he's got a 3rd one that I've not got yet. But I can recommend. The Hans P. Backer's books are superb. They're really, really good stuff. I won't bother grabbing one right now, but they're very, very good.
Yeah, I have no idea in here at the minute.
yeah. I know. I've just slightly rejigged some of my stuff.
Oh, so have I.
And so I'm a bit more lost now. I think I do own 2 of those books, and they're around. I don't know. Cool. Okay, so the next bit, I can't remember what that was. The camera. Okay, so we're going to go with. Let's do silhouettes first, actually. Let's do silhouettes first.
This is good stuff, David. By the way, we've got about 15 minutes. Well, actually, we've got 17 minutes remaining. If we're
okay, cool.
We're very precise.
Cool. Okay. Well, there is an old Wollywood axiom: when in doubt, black it out. This is a superb bit of advice because this saves so much time. But again, to stress my point from earlier, this is not laziness. Quite often, you will have to draw out whatever it is properly rather than just guessing, because a bad silhouette does not read properly. And they just look like a mess. And so you need to be very, very thoughtful of them. So what you're aiming for, we've got the bird. So always aim for the bird. Imagine a target on this bird.
Yep.
That's what you're aiming for. Always aim for the bird, which is where it's got a few major angles. Because by contrast, we say an egg is a round shape, but that could be a number of things. If you just saw that without context, that could be so many different things. You're like, is that? Oh yeah. And then similarly, the nest. It's like that again. That could be a scribble. That could be a bush. Yeah. That could be
an explosion. Could be all sorts.
It could be an explosion. Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's no, but the bird is the one image there, which even though that's kind of crudely just scribbled together, you're like, okay, that's a bird. Like your brain has no trouble with that, and so that's kind of the ballpark of where you need to aim for silhouettes. Where are we? So, and in the chat, have you made like a David Cousens bingo card yet? Because I know you've got one for the stuff Maddie does.
Yeah. I'm just waiting on 2 now, and then.
Seriously? Oh my god. Okay, I need to find that out later. Well, this is a potential one. This is potential because I'm about to talk about Alex Toth. So that's something I do. No, that's Marcus Mitchell. I'm going to go Toth first because I mentioned him first. That feels wrong. Okay. This guy, I've talked about him before. He was kind of a very troubled guy, really skilled and an artist. Like if you're a creative, you know him and he's great. But he never did anything particularly mainstream because he was so abrasive. And he was remarkably talented, and he expected the same from his contemporaries. And so we often tell them and didn't make friends.
It's very Eisner-like, isn't it?
Yeah, he. I think he may have had quite a few arguments with Eisner over the time. But yeah, as you can see, he's like a master of silhouettes, and it's not lazy because I've got the artisan edition, but he does like an artist edition as well. We can see his original pencil stuff before they're inked, and so you can see a lot of the time he's completely sketched out these characters. You can see it underneath, so he's drawn all of these and then silhouetted them.
Yeah.
So he's done sometimes a lot of the work, which I mean, you could argue you don't necessarily need to, but you would need to draw, like work out where the shapes are, so you're not just doing a random like scribbles. But you can see here we've got two characters talking to each other. This is a particularly clever frame because you've got a character in silhouette who's acting as the midground. So it pushes our lead character forward because he's got the contrast of black and white, blends in with his shirt for a nice graphic element. And then to add even more depth, so it's not just seeming like a cardboard stand-up, we just have this simple suggestion of a line there.
Yeah.
And so suddenly it's like that really, really works and sells it. So the guy was a master. And here we've got one guy kind of moving the other one towards the plane. And we can read this as the biplane. I mean, it's literally just this.
Yeah,
it's like a few lines and then squiggles, bang, 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 and that's
but the nose of the Douglas in the background helps as well. That's
yeah, and so it's that constant thing of like, if you just give people enough to work with it. It's the same concept of having every page in a comic should have an establishing shot, so you know where the action's taking place, and then once you do that, you can actually, I think I've got.
Do you find that black and white aids in getting? Do you think that black and white work is easier in many regards because you don't have to consider color?
Sometimes there are certain things which color does make more simple.
Yeah,
and that you don't have to worry about depth, for example. Like with this, you wouldn't have to. You could just say, okay, fine, we'll just have like a cooler color in the background and a warmer one in the front, and that contrast will just pull it forward. I mean, some ways, my life would be easier if I was just doing black and white stuff. I mean, just the speed alone, but I mean, you don't have the you don't have that like all the choices of like, what kind of mood am I going for, what does this color skin look like underneath this lighting, etc., etc.
Well, I was just thinking on that, because on the panels where with the wing there, when they're walking out across the airfield, I was just thinking, if that was in color, would you get away with that silhouette? Could you,
Yeah, I think you could, because I'm sure I've got some examples somewhere in here. I think that would work, because it is something I've been looking into recently, actually, because I've taken a more of a kind of gritty approach to my artwork from where it used to be much more smooth and clean. And so I've been like fighting my own coloring instincts. Yeah. And so I've literally the last week, as I've been trying to sort this out in my head and like fight the game of like, how am I coloring things now? I started to look for various artists who do have strong black and white work, and then see how color reacts to their stuff. And in a lot of cases, it can work pretty nicely. It's like for this one, I mean, you'd lose maybe some impact because the nose of this plane would be colored, and so that might then throw it slightly. But you could have like a kind of a moody sky or a sunset or something, and that would work perfectly nice for that. Just my opinion. Good.
No, it's good. I was just thinking, I wonder if life was, I can't remember if life was simpler then, but in the absence of color. But
this was colored, fun enough.
Oh, was it?
And do you know what? It did cause trouble, because there in the book there are two different versions.
Oh,
because there's a version that he did himself. Yeah. And they didn't like it, and so they painted another version, which I would get the book and hold it up, but it's not going to be the same as actually looking at it just on the camera. But they've actually got two versions in the back of the book. Again, this is a case of a pure silhouette, and so you've got like the main characters here blacked out. There's not really much to this car, if you look at it, it's almost a silhouette in itself. It's just got a few suggestions of where the lights on the rims and the roof.
Mm.
And then we've got, again, to put it into context, all he's done is just shown just literally the I want to say the turbine, the engine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like the edge of the propeller.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. I mean, the propeller itself is just a black shadow there, but it's enough to give us an idea of like how things should look. And again, just to prove this guy was kind of stupidly good, this panel here, it's only small, but that reads so well. Even with like a kind of a slightly like blurred scan, so the resolution's going funny over the internet, you can still see that's a group of 4 people away from the 2 in the foreground and a plane and a suitcase, and it all reads really, really strongly. Okay, I'm kind of conscious of time, so I will rattle through faster than just being.
Well, we've got a few minutes extra if we need it, David. To be honest, because we lost a little bit with the dropout, so I'm sure cool. Tim won't mind if we have a couple of extra minutes.
I try not to go too far, but again, more silhouettes. This is. I mean, look at this plane. So I just have to admire this stuff. It's like that. Like how simple that is. And so he's not had to draw like any of the fuselage or any kind of details coming off it. We've just literally got, just to add readability, it's a tail fin.
Yeah. And
that's it. And the whole thing. And like, but that's still like, that's a plane. And even as I'm doing it now, it's starting to work.
It is.
And it's that quick. It's just dashed out. If you knew, much like Sandrine's question earlier, if you knew basically how a plane works, you can simplify it to that kind of level. But again, going to your point on the same subject, if you know too much, you may be tempted to draw all these things to
add in extra bits. Yeah, it's that balance.
Yeah,
right between those. Between those, I know that my brother used to wander out on rare occasions when my brother would come into work, you know, where I worked, and would come over to the drawing board, because it was drawing boards then, and would look at. Well, I could have drawn that. I thought, yeah, okay. I almost felt like giving him the brush and saying, "Yeah, you do it."
That's one of those funny things that people. Yeah, you can tell the people who don't know what they're talking about, because they will look at something simple and say, "Oh, I could do it." Like, no, you couldn't.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide. The more simplified something gets, the harder it becomes.
Harder it is. Yeah.
And it's like if you do thousands of hatch lines, you can kind of hide what you don't know, and like it can look messy, and it's like it's fine. Whereas like simplicity, that's where the big players are. That's all the hard stuff. And speaking of simplicity, again, you can't see this, but on the artist edition, he actually drew in. There was a whole shop, like in the background here.
Oh wow!
And there's building stuff in the street.
Yeah.
And then for readability's sake, he literally, you can see on the original art book, he's kind of whited it out.
Yeah.
And so he drew it, but some of it is still left visible underneath there, because obviously it wouldn't reproduce at the time. So that's
white
kind
out.
Yeah.
It used to be a thing.
I know.
Little tiny pots of white out to save your life.
Back in the old days.
Back in the days, yes.
Back in the old days of when magazines existed. And I used to do some of my first work, literally my first work professionally, was for Photoshop magazines and doing painting stuff. And there was always a point, because again, back in the old days, I used to draw on paper and then scan it and then color it.
Yeah.
So I'd have to remove the white. So there'd always be a position to remove the white from it. And you had to come up with puns for every step. And this used to be the longest part of the goddamn tutorials, was coming up with these puns. And it's like I could finish it. It'd be an extra hour, like writing up something. And every time I gave up and I just wrote white out. Every time. It was like you could guarantee that was going to turn up every tutorial until I got my Cintiq. The pain.
I've got your book here somewhere, actually, digital art somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Here. I have no idea. Can't wait till Chloe comes back to restore order.
And then last toast one for now. Again, it's just more silhouette stuff. It's really good. There's people here, and then he's had to choose one person who's
I love the fact that that main character seems to have morphed slightly from Howard Hughes to the Hoff.
Yeah, he was. He had a massive thing for Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
And so all of his characters, it's me mocking him, he's amazing. But it's like all of his characters, his heroes always look the same. They always had that kind of pencil moustache, and then had that kind of slightly Hoff-likeness.
Yeah,
left to them.
That's very Hoff. That could almost be Knight Rider, and I'm not mocking him either. By the way, Angus is saying in the chat he has some copies of Hergé sketches with Whiteout still on it. No way.
That's so cool. Man, everybody has all the chat people have some really cool things going on. That's awesome. Again, more strong silhouettes. I mean, you look. This is this guy, Marcus Matteo.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Sorry for mispronouncing that horribly. He's I think he was also a concept artist. He's made a couple of really good books called Framed Ink.
Yeah, Perspective.
He's got Framed
another Perspective. Then there's Ink and Ink 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, his stuff's really worth looking at as well.
Yeah, I have those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's of course you do.
It's not a library without it.
If it's a good design book, you have it.
I have. Yeah, I'm a bit of a fiend for the old books.
So yeah, I mean, you look at that top panel. That's so simplistic.
What I love about his books is the way he actually the character becomes the narrator in many of the pages.
Yeah, and again, it's just the simplicity of it. It's so nice. I mean, you just look. We can see that's a pirate ship, even. Yeah. Or like an old, not necessarily a pirate ship, but from
sailing ship.
Era. Yeah, sailing ship. And it's like you've not had to. I've painfully on illustrations before drawn old ships like that, old sailing ships. For there's like a kids. One of my first jobs was a book for Macmillan, or a series of books and the historical things. And so they had to be accurate. If I'd have known about this, that I could silhouette stuff and get away with it, it's like this would have saved me. I don't even know. It's painful. And this is before we also had 3D models to just turn around and guess. So a lot of maths trying to work out how these things should look. But yeah, I mean that stuff.
And Trimble SketchUp.
That's good stuff. No backgrounds? Yeah, okay, let's go no backgrounds. I'm losing track of which things I've done. Or not. This one speaks to the point of what I was saying earlier about the establishing shot. Like once you've got that, which obviously is here, so you've got your external shot, so we can see the kind of windows it's got, which then leads us into this. So you can even silhouette all of these windows. It's all blocked out. And that's fine. We can read that. And then he gives a bit of the internal stuff. And it's not even that much. And then just gradually, but you can still get a feel for the room. There's a table, sofa, whatnot. And then we just go, okay, there's windows, which is much, much smaller, again, much easier. Then there's nothing but color. And then we just go to flat out nothing. And it's always important that you don't always need backgrounds. It is one of those things, and often it helps a page to not have a background. I mean, I literally yesterday, some of the stuff I shared, I kind of, this is one of the tricks I employed in my latest thing, which so many clicks. There we go. One more.
There's a very deep link between comic work and cinematography.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You are the camera.
Hang on, let's go. That's not. This one, there we go. This one. Yeah. And so we've just got there's a nice amount of blank space just used as a graphic element, and then I did it again here on the last page. It's like we don't need to see the forest. We've seen it for 6 pages, and then you see it here in the establishing shot, which is obviously a re-establishing shot because it's been seen already. But it's just to anchor people and say, okay, this is where they are and where they live. And then we just take out the background because we don't need it at all. It's just about the people. And that's a really good way of showing, go away. It's a really good way of showing isolation. So Actually, being mindful of the time again. That's
It's okay. We're good.
it's Steer's Pullet. It's this is the whole page. So if I go Command 0 to get it in place, so that's the entire page, and you can kind of see. Yeah, I've got a thing there. You can kind of see there's the mark of the page there, just where the scans come in. So it'll be about there. There's no background at all, but that so strongly sells the isolation.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd have had like the whole drawing with like say like the table there and a lamp and a door to the kitchen and the floor and then like the wood paneling and all these things, it would just detract from it.
Yeah, you get a sense of isolation by the work being isolated.
Yeah,
have you seen Unflattening, David? The book Unflattening.
No.
You seen that one?
No.
That's a good one to check out.
Right, you have to Slain and Unflattening. There's the thing.
Slain and Unflattening. That's your homework for this week.
Yes. No, seriously, I'm going to be all over.
I'm sorry.
I love finding out new things. It's great. Yeah. It's always especially when you get
Unflattening is a little bit of a journey of an exploration, as well as being a story. It's a little bit of an exploration of where you can go with frames.
Oh, speaking about loneliness, actually, this one down here was the same kind of thing. Again, Star Wars manga. It's, I know exactly, and it gets that kind of impression. It's like
it's amazing.
That would not be any stronger. In fact, I would argue it was weaker if you were to add the Death Star floor or the walls or any of the stuff, or like the background behind Luke near the Falcon. It's like
it is perfect.
Yeah, it's just distilled down, and you think how much time that saved. And so that's kind of really what's I guess this whole thing's been stressing, is just to be thoughtful of what there is. Oh god, my notifications have clicked on. That's because we went over to close later. It's that thing of just thinking, like, what do I need to do, and what benefits this? Yeah. And so that's really cool.
That you can represent that much time, in so few. And in fact, in one composition, essentially, because it's a composition containing, a few other micro compositions in it. Amazing, really amazing. And the downward motion of both Darth Vader and the falling lightsaber as a pacer in between those frames, beautiful, just beautiful.
It's superb. It's absolutely just a gorgeous thing. And then we will skip over through most other things, and then the last time saver would just be it's kind of along similar lines, actually. Let's hide that. Is the semi silhouette, which looks, I'm trying to hide them. There we go. So again, we've got loads of Alex Toad stuff here, so I won't go over too much more of it. But you've got the whole building is silhouetted out, and you've just got like the windows there and the car. And then so the building's black. It's black. Most of the car is black in the shadow, but it looks really cool. Let's go for something different. Let's go for okay. This is again from Decorum. This is one that I said, like, the guy's style keeps changing. Loads of semi silhouettes. So you've got like half darkness, so it's not needed to work out how to draw. Whoops, let's do it on the thing. He hasn't need to work out like how exactly this leg's gonna look with the folds, or this character's legs here. Any of these things, or you can just suggest stuff and shapes, so you don't need to overly fuss the background. Like, you've got this vent thing here, which is just kind of suggests, like, we don't know what any of this stuff is, and I'm not even sure if the artist would do, but it's been drawn in and it looks really cool. Same deal, same artist. And again, Frazetta stuff. You don't need to draw everything in. The instinct would absolutely be, I've worked out that this guy's here, and so he's got the chest there, and then his other leg will be back there. And I draw this because that looks nice and dynamic. It's a real powerful spread of his stance. All that kind of stuff. But it looks better like that.
No, it's so good. However, I fear, my friends, that it's time for us to wrap up. We are pretty much there on the money.
No. I'm sorry. I got so enthusiastic.
No. Me too. I kept tangenting you.
That's fine. I didn't mind that.
But no, it's Angus is saying these insights so transferable for everything. Excellent stream. Thank you, David and Tony. Top quality. There we go.
Angus.
Oliver, thank you, Oliver. Thanks, David and Tony. Michelle, thanks for the great stream. I cut that time has flown by, David.
Yeah,
so good.
When you said like, oh, there's about 20 minutes left, I was like, what? Okay.
No. But we have gone down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So, but the great thing is we'll have to continue at a later time.
Oh, damn.
No, so good. Thank you everyone for joining us, and yes. More Adobe Live next week. I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. It's terrible. I think I'm in there somewhere actually next week, but who knows?
I'm not. So if I've been putting you off, you can come back. It's safe next week.
Actually, I definitely am, because it's next week. We're doing. If you're on our Discord, you can go ahead and poll for our Discord. That's myself, Raquel Costa. You ought to check out her comics, David. Actually,
yes.
She's fantastic.
I've already voted in that poll, actually.
Have you?
Yes.
Have you? What did you vote for? If you don't mind me asking.
The prehistoric pigeon.
Prehistoric pigeon. Epic.
I thought that has to be the one, surely.
Yep. So myself, Raquel, and Yulia, aka the three Arketeers. Tim's even given us a theme tune, believe it or not. We're on next week.
Is it nose flute based?
Sorry?
Is it nose flute based?
No. That would be Maddie's department. She will probably pop in and do a nose flute solo, though. Anyway, my friend, and everybody else, thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
for joining
everybody.
us. Thank you, David. It's been great. Absolutely great.
Very good fun. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Take care, everyone. See you.
See you,
next
everyone.
week.
Have a good day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.